A brand new car loses value the moment you drive it home. Not after a year. Not after a few months. Immediately. The doors close. The engine starts. You pull out of the showroom, and a chunk of your money disappears. Silently. No notification. No warning. Just gone. And yet, millions of people still do it every year. Not because they're careless. Not because they don't understand money. But because the system around cars is designed to make this feel normal. Even smart. A man spends months researching his next car. He compares models. Watches reviews. Calculates fuel efficiency. Negotiates the price. Finally, he decides. It feels like a well-thought-out decision. Responsible, even. He doesn't go for the luxury option. He stays practical. He finances part of it. Pays a down payment. Signs the paperwork. Drives home satisfied. For a moment, everything feels right. Progress. Achievement. A visible upgrade in life. But something else has started. Something less visible. A slow, predictable financial drain that doesn't feel like a loss, but behaves exactly like one. Let's slow this down. Because buying a car is not a single expense. It's a system of expenses. Layered. Recurring. Expanding. And once you step into it, stepping out becomes surprisingly difficult. Start with the obvious. The price. In 2026, even a basic new car isn't basic anymore. Prices have climbed steadily over the last decade. Not just because of inflation, but because cars themselves have changed. More tech. More features. More complexity. And every added feature adds cost. So what used to be an affordable entry point is now something else entirely. A commitment. Now add financing. Because very few people pay for a car in full. They take a loan. EMIs spread over 5, sometimes 7 years. On paper, it feels manageable. Monthly payments. Predictable. Contained. But zoom out. You're not just buying a car. You're committing a portion of your future income, for years. Before you even earn it. And that changes the equation. Because now your income isn't fully yours. A part of it is already spoken for. Every month. No matter what. But the cost doesn't stop there. In fact, that's just the beginning. Insurance. Mandatory. And not cheap. Especially in the first few years. Then maintenance. Regular servicing. Unexpected repairs. Wear and tear. Fuel. Which rarely moves in your favor. Parking. Sometimes paid. Sometimes stressful. And then there are the small things. The ones no one calculates. Car washes. Accessories. Upgrades. Fines. Individually, they feel insignificant. Together, they add up quietly. Now here's where it gets interesting. None of these costs feel like a loss. They feel like part of ownership. Normal. Expected. And that's the psychological shift. Because once something becomes normal, it stops being questioned. But let's question it. Not emotionally. Structurally. Imagine the total cost of owning a car over 5 years. Not just the purchase price. Everything. Loan interest. Insurance. Fuel. Maintenance. Depreciation. Now compare that to what the car is actually worth at the end. The gap between those two numbers is the real cost. And it's usually much larger than people expect. Because cars don't just cost money. They lose it. Relentlessly. Depreciation is the part everyone knows about. But very few people truly feel. Because it's invisible. There's no monthly reminder that your car just lost value. No alert saying, you lost 5% today. It just happens. Quietly. In the first year alone, a new car can lose 15 to 25% of its value. Sometimes more. And it continues. Year after year. So while you're paying EMIs? The asset you're paying for is shrinking. That's an unusual dynamic. Most things you invest in are expected to grow. A car does the opposite. Now, to be fair, a car is not meant to be an investment. It's a utility. A tool. Something that makes life easier. And that's where the argument usually ends. Of course it costs money. It's worth it. Sometimes, that's true. But not always. And definitely not by default. Because the question isn't whether a car has value. It's whether the value you get justifies the total cost you pay. And that answer depends on something most people don't think about. Usage. If a car genuinely saves you time, creates opportunities, improves your daily life in measurable ways, then the cost might make sense. But for many people, that's not what happens. The car becomes convenience, comfort, occasionally, status. Used for short commutes, idle for long hours, parked more than it's driven. And yet, it continues to cost you. Every single day. Now let's zoom out further. Because this isn't just about cars. It's about timing. Most people buy their first car early in their earning journey. When income is still growing. Savings are limited. Financial flexibility is fragile. And that's when they take on a long-term liability, which quietly reduces their ability to do something else. Invest. Save aggressively. Take risks. Because a portion of their income is now locked. Committed. Predictable. And predictability has a cost. It reduces optionality. You can't easily switch jobs. You can't comfortably handle income disruptions. You can't experiment financially. Because the EMI doesn't pause. Now layer in lifestyle. Because once you own a car, your behavior changes. You drive more. Spend more on fuel. Choose convenience over efficiency. Small shifts. But consistent. And over time, they reinforce the system. Here's where it becomes subtle. Owning a car doesn't just cost money. It shapes decisions. Where you live. Where you go. How you spend time. And those decisions have financial consequences. Even if they don't feel like it. Now let's talk about something slightly uncomfortable. Status. Because for many people, a car is not just a tool. It's a signal. Progress. Success. Stability. And in 2026, that signal still matters. Even if we don't admit it. People upgrade cars not because they need to, but because it feels like the next step. A milestone. And milestones are powerful. Because they justify decisions. Even expensive ones. So someone moves from a basic car to a better one. Not drastically different. Just nicer. But that small upgrade comes with a larger cost. Higher EMI. Higher insurance. Higher expectations. And once again, the baseline resets. Now what used to feel like a luxury becomes normal, and the cycle continues. This is how a financial trap works. Not through one big mistake, but through a series of reasonable decisions. Each step makes sense. Individually. Together, they create a structure that's hard to escape. Now, let's contrast this with an alternative. Imagine delaying the purchase. Not forever. Just strategically. Using public transport. Ride-sharing. Occasional rentals. Not always comfortable. Not always convenient. But flexible. No fixed cost. No long-term commitment. And more importantly, more control over your money. Because every month without a car payment is a month where your income remains fully yours. Which means you can allocate it differently. Invest. Build assets. Create buffers. Things that grow instead of shrink. And here's where the math becomes interesting. The money you don't spend on a car doesn't just stay idle. It can compound. Slowly at first. Then more noticeably. And over time, the difference becomes significant. Not because cars are bad, but because timing matters. Buying the same car 5 years later, when your income is higher, and your assets are working for you, is a completely different decision. Same car, different context, different impact. Now zoom out one final time. The modern economy thrives on consumption. Predictable, repeatable spending. Cars fit perfectly into that system. High upfront cost. Long-term payments. Ongoing expenses. Reliable. From the system's perspective, it works beautifully. From an individual perspective, it depends. Because if your financial structure is strong, a car is just another expense. But if it's not, it becomes a constraint. A quiet one. One that doesn't feel dangerous, but limits your movement in ways you don't immediately notice. So the next time you think about buying a car, don't just ask, "Can I afford this?" Ask something slightly different. What does this commit me to over time? Not just financially, but behaviorally. Because the real cost of a car isn't the price you see. It's the structure you step into. And once you're inside that structure, it starts shaping your decisions, long before you realize it. So the question isn't whether a car is worth it. It's whether, right now, in your current situation, it's worth what it quietly takes away. Because 10 years from now, you probably won't remember the exact moment you bought the car, but you will feel the financial path it put you on. And that path is where the real story begins.